Welcome to this Business Central launch event session for 2023 Release Wave 2, introducing Analyze Data on Lists and Queries. We have a tightly packed agenda, and the most important thing is the first, the world is changing. What's that? Let's see. Then we'll talk about analyzing data on list pages, on queries, how you can share a data analysis definition with a coworker or friend, how you can turn off the feature if you really want to do that, and then some learning resources and go-dos. So what does this mean? The world is changing. Well, the world is changing in many, many different ways. For this session, because we're talking about reporting and analytics, this is, of course, the world of reporting and data analysis is changing. Now, in this session, it's very important that we make this distinction. The word reporting in Business Central means three different things: analytical reports, processing-only reports, and printable documents. In this session, we only cover analytical reports. Okay, very important, not the other two. So it's the world that is changing for analytics. In organizations, there are different needs to analyze data depending on what kind of role you have. Typically, if you look at an organizational diagram here, the further you go up towards leadership, the further you probably need to have your data aggregated so that staff, people working on on processes, probably need pretty detailed data, whereas middle management typically want trends and summaries, and in the leadership team, you probably mostly want performance data, KPIs, and so on. So that also means the typical ways to consume data or the tools you use for your analytics needs change on the different role in your organization. Typical, of course, is that it's not that people working in leadership only deal with KPIs and dashboards and financial reports, but it's just the typical way to consume this data. So we worked with this definition of different tools for different needs to build a vision for analytics and reporting. And the main thing in this vision for Business Central is that analytics is built for online consumption, not for print. Remember again, this is not document reporting, this is analytics or analytical reporting. So online consumption is the way we want to move things forward. And we have three different pillars to this vision. The first one is the way your customers or users consume data. We want Business Central to have out-of-the-box reporting and analytics solutions for the core business scenarios in the product. Number two, we want to enable that most of the analytical needs that users have are simply covered with no-code or low-code solutions. And three, that customers have easy access to data for advanced BI and analytics. Of course, part of this vision, the partner community is key, so ISVs should also be able to deliver analytics. And remember, this is not document reporting. This presentation has nothing to do with the documents that you use for invoices and so on. Okay? Only for analytics. So let me show you some features we built in this space. The first is how to analyze data on list pages. You can think about analyze data on list pages as before you run a report, you get a PDF, and if you need to do something else, a different type of analysis, you would need to run the report with different parameters, get a new PDF, and so on. In this new world, we want to enable self-service data analysis directly in the client. And with analyzed data on lists, you get just that. You can quickly extract insights. You can design data or analysis your way with different tabs on the data, where the grouping, filters, and so on is local to that analysis. And then you can save your analysis for later. It will just stay there, so the next time you go to the list, it's there and you can pick up your analysis. This was in public preview in 2023, release wave 1, and you needed to enable it under feature management. In this release wave, this is generally available. Where Microsoft, we abbreviate everything. So generally available, we call that GA. It's the same thing. So the feature is enabled for all users. You don't need to use feature management anymore. The feature can be turned off either by a developer who says this is not something you can analyze, or with a permission. I'll come back to the permission part. And not only can users save reports for later, they can actually share them with coworkers and friends. I'll show you that later as well. We also listened to feedback from the public preview. So we did a few small improvements to the user interface. First of all, to discover this better, we make sure that the analysis menus are always open the first time you go to a page. And then that persistence will also take place for each of your analysis menus. So they open, the analysis menus are open close depending on how you want it for that analysis. Then in the public preview, we were a bit cautious about the data size. So we put a limit on 100,000 rows on a list where you could load that data, and then that's it. If you had more data, you would need to do a pre-filtering on the list before you went into this new mode of analyzing data. Not anymore. With 2023 release wave 2, we removed completely this limitation, and you can analyze as much data as you want. Of course, if you have tons of data, it might take a little longer to load the page. And then also as a new thing in this release, we added the ability to analyze data not only on lists, but also on query objects. And we'll show you some examples of that in this presentation. But let's maybe take a look at how analyzed data on lists look in the 2023 release wave 2. All right, so I'm on the Role Center, and let's try to, first of all, analyze one of our ledgers. Maybe I'm interested in the customer ledger entry table or customer ledger entries because I want to analyze my sales data. So if I search for customer ledger entries, let's see if we find that page. This is a list page, and this is the normal list you know. But then if you toggle this Analyze button here, it takes the page into the analysis mode. And this opens up a completely new UI that allows you to analyze, slice, and dice the data. You notice that the first time you go into this on a page, the menus are here, are enabled, and there's an analysis 1 created for you. If I just click here to remove things and maybe just add a customer number and a document number, let's put a customer number here and a document number down here. And let's say I'm fine with this for now. It's a silly analysis, but that's how it is. I hide my choice, and I go back to my Role Center. So let me go back to the customer ledger, to the Role Center. Then next time I go to the same list, customer ledger entries. Let's see if we can find it here. First of all, you notice that Business Central remembers your choice of this toggle. So if the last action you did was to analyze data on this list, it will actually persist that choice. And the second choice Business Central chose to persist was that the menus are now no longer expanded. So the choice of analysis mode or not on a page, as well as the initial opening of these, is something we thought, at least we heard from our UI experiments and our UI testing, that this would make the feature easier to discover. But let me open up the menu again, and let's just try a few things here. So let me, for instance, I'm interested in sales, and maybe I want to look at sales amount in dollars, grouped by customer and document number. Now I can just easily see which customers bought what and the invoice numbers. And if I then want to maybe pivot this and see the posting, when was this posted, then I can see the posting date has a date hierarchy of year, quarter, month. Maybe I want to pull in the posting date year and maybe the quarter into my pivot here. And then I can, let's just get rid of a few of these measures here. I just want this sum of amount. Here we go. And now I have my sum of amount by quarter, last year and this year. So very, very easy for me to, as a customer or a user, to write my own mini reports. Many users would actually see data analysis as a reporting tool, and they would call these my sales report. Okay. So that's in a nutshell data analysis directly in the client. It's on live data, no replicated data. Security model is preserved, and totally no code analysis, ad hoc analysis on your data. The next thing we added in this wave was not only can you do data analysis on lists pages, but you can also do it on query objects. Query objects in the past was something that was done by developers to speed up code, but now you can use a query object as the data foundation for this new way of doing ad hoc analysis or reporting. So you had always in Business Central the ability to open a query on the URL with / query equals the query ID. But the new thing is that this now comes with the same analysis toggle, and it opens the same UI now on queries. Let's try just to see that. It's going to be a boring demo because it looks exactly the same way as data analysis on lists. All right, so for this demo, I created a query, and I'm using this URL query equals and then the ID of this. Of course, that's not the way users will interact with this, but just for you to see the UI. So I will open this. Right, and now you can see my query here is called Analyze Your Inventory. And I even added a teaching tip for it. Show help actually shows the teaching tip, and I can even add links to the specific links to a documentation for this query. So that's a way to document a query so that users can find it even more useful. In this particular example, I took something on inventory, on items, and I joined that in the query with location details. So you can notice here that I have item description and location. Let's find a Mexican chair. And now instead of the normal location codes, these uppercase thingies, you can actually use the location names from the related table. That's what I joined in my query. And I can see now that East Warehouse has remaining quantity of 3, main 1, and west warehouse 6, which means the outsourced logistics location, there's nothing happening there. And you can see these are the elements in my query. I have location code from the item list or from the item table, but I also have location name, city, and country that I joined in my query and enables me now to do analysis on inventory based on location and anything else you might want to add in your query, you can certainly analyze on with the same user interface. So a few features came in a bit late in our release, so they are likely available in version 23.1. Queries are just any other UI element that will now show up in Report or Role Explorer, and they are also searchable in TellMe, just like you would search for a report or search for a page. You can now search for a query, and they will show up in the places where we want to make content discoverable. So Role Explorer, what's that beast? What's that? And what are these new links if you go to TellMe or on the Role Center, main Role Center? So you have something called Exploring Reports or All Reports. These are the foundation for a new concept where we want reporting content to be much more discoverable in Business Central. We got feedback from users who said, Business Central doesn't come with any reports. Okay, well, if you click on that Report Explorer, and if you also remember to expand all, Business Central will remember your choice, so it only need to do that once. You actually see that there's a lot of analytical capabilities in Business Central built in. So that's part of the vision. You remember the vision, built in analytical content for every use case or every main feature in Business Central. It's right here, and we're adding to that, going to add to that with queries and with reports and other reporting artifacts. All right. Another thing we added in this release wave was ability to share an analysis definition with a coworker. So on the Analysis tab menu, I'll show you in a minute, you can share a link to the analysis you did as a user with a friend. And a quick tip here is, of course, these links, you can put them anywhere in Teams or on a web page or in OneNote or whatever you like. And they're basically quick click once installers for analysis. So let me just show you. Actually, I'll just show you here. It's the same demo. So here I have an income statement by month analysis I did, and you can see that if I open this tab menu, I can copy link, and then I get a menu where I'm able either to say this link is for the specific company or this is a company agnostic link, and you can copy them and you can share that. So instead of showing you the sharing, I would actually like to demo the click once idea. So let me go and show you that. If you go to aka.ms/BC data analysis, let's do that. Then you come to our open source repository of all kinds of sample code. For this particular sample code, we added some click once scenarios where you can just try out this idea about click once. These only work in 2023 release wave 2. But here are some different scenarios described, how to do it in click, and like an instruction of how to do it, but also a click once, like try it in Business Central. So let's not go for finance, let's go finance, but let's take the sales report here, this one here. The description says, get an overview of the customers that purchase the most or that owe the most. I'm interested in this and I would like to try it out. So instead of redoing the analysis by hand, I simply click here to create. So it says Control click. Let's open that in a new browser tab. And let's see what this brings to the table. And look, create and open analysis view. And it proposed, or it told me, look, this could be a good name for this analysis tab, total sales and remaining amounts. I'm happy with this. I'll click OK. And there you go. Now you have a data analysis from a friend, the total sales and remaining amounts. Seems like we are doing something on customer name and document number, the invoices, and then sum of remaining amount, sum of sales. I'm happy with that. So it opened up with it, this data analysis opened. I don't want that. But my sales report here, I actually want this. If I go out of data analysis and back to the customer ledger, and then let's say tomorrow or lunch next day, I go back here, you can see that Business Central has persisted my menu choice of still analyzing on my sales report. But the other one here has persisted that I actually don't want the menu item to be persisted or opened. It will just be like that. So this is how you can share an analysis with a friend using these click once or create a URL. And then once you click it, it's available for that other person. You're not sharing in the sense that if I share with you and I change my definition, your definition will change. Once you take my link and copy it, it will become your own version of that. And you can then change that if you want to rename, if you want to, whatever you want to do with that. It's your analysis and it's disconnected from mine. It's just a copy. The final feature we added is ability to turn off. Like, why would you want to do that with such a wonderful feature? Well, some customers don't want all their employees to have open in Excel feature. Similarly, they don't want this just easy to analyze and copy all the data out. So we added a new permission, a new system permission called Data Analysis Exec or Execute. And with this new permission set, if you have this, you're allowed to do data analysis on everything where you have permission on the object. If you want to revoke this from users, you do it the normal way. You create a new permission set, including everything they should do, and then you exclude this new permission, and then suddenly they cannot do data analysis anymore. Okay, resources. First of all, as I mentioned, this aka.ms/BC data analysis, it gives you some ideas to try out with customers or with co-workers, and maybe kind of give you some indication of how to get started. I think we put in scenarios for 15 different ways of using this across finance, sales, inventory, even a little bit of compliance. So take a look and see if there's a scenario that matches what you like, and we'll see if I'll try to get some of these click once scenarios in there as well. So it's not only the description, but actually just click and try. And then just going back to the world is changing in reporting, and specifically in analytical reporting. Let's stop this. Like, if you're a customer or if you are a consultant and the customer asks, can you build me a report? Let's stop asking, sure, what columns would you have and where would you like to put them, and let's open the RDL designer. Stop doing that. Instead, start asking the customer, what is it that you need to analyze and for what? Because once you know the analytical requirements and maybe know a little bit about where in the organization this user is operating, then choose a tool of choice that might be a report, but maybe something completely else. Maybe for KPIs, Power BI and embedding Power BI is the thing. Or as we saw in this presentation, the query lists ad hoc analysis might just be the report that they want, but it's not a traditional Business Central AL report, because it's just a definition of things. For queries, it would be, what is the data set I need to mash up for you, dear customer, so that you're unblocked with your ad hoc analysis. And if Excel is important, or if the customer is really skilled with Excel, maybe build them an AL data set in a report and then tell them, look, do all the self-service you want for your layouts. It might be, this is probably a mix between low code and no code, and probably some customers will be very savvy with Excel, and it will be very, not even low code, but very code, but all of that done in Excel by the customer or by the user. So, go-dos. Most important thing, take away from this, understand analytics requirements. Stop developing reports and start supporting analytical needs. As a consultant or developer, maybe start learning a little bit about Power BI. Power BI is here to stay. Business intelligence and ERP, they go together. ERP is about processing, supporting business processes. Business intelligence about insights on business processes. They go together, and Power BI is a really good tool to do that kind of, especially on the top level of the organizational hierarchy. Start learning about AL queries. If you thought AL queries was just about performance tuning, it's not anymore. We're changing the game for this. We're investing more in queries over the next years. Queries are a powerful tool to mash up data, and that means instead of build me a report, it might just be build me a query, and I'm unblocked. Thank you. And finally, start also learn about or design data sets, especially for Excel layouts. Again, that could be that instead of build me a report, it's going to be build me a report data set. And especially for these build me things, the requirements, there's a relevant launch session specifically for that, which is called What's New in Power BI and Reporting for Developers. So much more content of how you can help customers building content of these types. You might also want to look into other productivity features in the web client if you liked this kind of content. And also the what's new on adding existing table fields to optimize pages is also a way to do ad hoc analysis, just doing it on list pages. For general resources, Yammer is the place where we take discussions. We can do it on Twitter, X as well. All AKA links are covered under BC All, AKA, so that's the one AKA URL to rule them all. If you have ideas for new features or improvements, BC Ideas is your friend. And finally, everything we talk about in Business Central launch events is also covered in the Business Central office hours. They are also recorded and available there. And with that, thank you so much. I hope you have a great Business Central launch event with great sessions and hopefully parties around the world with partner. Thank you.